Hi, I'm Ross the Boss, and tonight's guest, we have an unbelievable funny comic compared to a not funny comic. This guy's really funny. You might know him from The Tonight Show. He's been in movies. We'll talk about that. He also produces movies. He directs movies. We'll talk about that. He's one of my favorite comics working the road, and he works all over the country. So make sure you go to his website and check him out. His name is Ahmed Ahmed. Ahmed, welcome to the show.
What's up, Ross? Thank you, man.
It's good
Nice
to see
intro.
you. I remember when I had you on the Tonight Show, you were unbelievable. It was a real hassle. I remember the night before, really quick, a quick story. Night before, I always go out with the comics to see what set they're doing. I go out to Ahmed Ahmed. His set, the first place we went to was the Improv. It was a disaster. We ended up going to the Comedy Store. Not much better, but it didn't matter. I knew it was material. I knew it would work. And he was all nervous, thinking that he's going to get canceled. I said, "You're not getting canceled. You're on tomorrow." And Ahmed Ahmed went up there and just destroyed it. And it was a great set. I just want to thank you for doing that for me.
Oh,
But
man.
before we get started,
May I say something about that really quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to just detail what you just said. When we went to the Improv and Bob Reed was with you.
Bob Reed, my partner in crime. Go on.
And I went up and it was D. Ray Davis's Mo Better Mondays.
And that's an ethnic show. I'm being politically correct here.
It's very urban.
And they're all they don't listen. They exchange phone numbers, business cards in the audience. No one's listening to the comedian, but go on.
So I went up first. It was a cold audience. Bob Reed said, "Don't take the mic off the stand and just do your thing. Your 4.5 minutes or whatever." So I'm like, "Don't take the mic off the stand. The bookers from the Tonight Show are here. It's an all black audience. It smells like weed." Like it was like there was a lot of crazy stuff going on. So I went up on stage and I threw out my first joke. No one laughed. I threw out my second joke. Not a laugh. Nothing. I threw out my third joke. Crickets. And then some black woman from the back of the room yelled out, "Say something funny, motherfucker." And then the whole audience started booing me.
I was in the floor. Just so you know, I wasn't concerned. I was laughing so hard when that was happening because I enjoy watching you on stage, just squirming a little bit. It kind of makes you a little humble. But yeah, I remember that very well. I didn't want to bring that up, but keep going.
I remember I just kind of abandoned my set. I was like, "All right, you guys, I feel like a substitute teacher. Good night." And I walked off stage. And I remember D. Ray Davis, God bless him, he went up on stage and started ridiculing the audience. He's like, "Motherfuckers, he's trying to audition for the Tonight Show, and you guys are booing him, and you guys will pay X amount of dollars to see Cat Williams, but you'll boo him at the, whatever class." So he started razzing the crowd, and they felt bad. But anyway, when I went out in the hall, I had my head down, and I go, "Fuck." I go, "I bombed." And you go, "No, man, it was all right." And Bob Reed goes, "No, you bombed."
I was trying to be, but I knew for your confidence level, we had to go someplace else and see you.
And then we went up to the Comedy Store, and I had a little bit of a better.
Your Comedy Store, which is your home club, which we all know, and the rest is history. But to ask you, like, you're Egyptian, and you're proud of it. And Egyptian people aren't really known for their comedy. No offense. I think you could be one of the only Egyptian comedians I can name, unless there's somebody else I'm missing. But basically, how did a guy that was born in Egypt, raised in Riverside, become a stand-up comic?
So, well, first of all, Egyptians aren't known to be funny in the U.S.
Okay, let me clarify that. In the U.S., the Egyptian people are not known to be funny.
Right,
okay.
But if you travel anywhere in the Middle East and ask anybody outside of Egypt in the Middle East, who are the comedians of the Middle East, 99.9% of the people will say Egyptians.
Really?
So yeah, most Egyptians, they have, in Arabic we call it dem khafif, which means we're light-blooded. It's a light-blooded culture, right?
Right.
It's a passionate culture. It's a lot of Egyptians are known to be really kind of like, passionate and maybe loud and whatever. But there's definitely a sense of humor that is in our blood for some reason, and it was kind of a natural progression for me to get into stand-up comedy because my dad, God rest his soul, he was super funny, like one of the funniest people in the world. I literally have, every time somebody meets my dad, they just say he's one of the funniest people I've ever met. I made a documentary called Just Like Us about comedy in the Middle East. and a bunch of famous comics were in there. You know, Whitney Cummings and Sebastian Maniscalco, Maz Jobrani, and Tommy Davidson. You know, Tom Papa.
And you can watch that free. You can watch that free actually online, which I did.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, yeah. It's on YouTube. It's
Yep.
just go to Cross Cultural Production.
I was talking to you last week, and you told me to watch it. I turned it on the back, and it was great. And I've been around comedy a long time, and I wasn't. I thought I'd be bored, but I wasn't. It was a very easy watch, and it's free. Go watch
Yeah,
it.
yeah, it's free. It's there's a lot of, like I said, famous comics, like I just mentioned earlier. But my dad is in it for about 5 minutes, a couple minutes in the beginning, middle, and then the end, and just has a couple sound bites. But when we were editing the film and doing like focus group screenings to get like feedback, we would ask everybody, you know, who was your favorite character in the movie? And everybody said, like 98% said my dad.
Did you tell him this?
So I told him, and he was like, "Oh yeah, maybe I should get an agent." You know.
He said it just like that.
And my mom mom was like,
"You grew up in Riverside, which isn't known to be a comedy mecca either."
"No,
How did you end up at the Comedy Store? And was it a dare? I mean, did you just show up to audition night? How did this all work?
So I started out as an actor in 1990. I want to say 1998. In fact, that's where I met who we were talking about earlier, Vince Vaughn.
You can say Vince Vaughn, and you were actually in Swingers with Vince, correct?
Yep, and that led me into getting Iron Man because I met Jon Favreau. I played one of the terrorists. And
that's a stretch. Yep.
This Iron Man movie. But I was an actor for the first 7 years I got to Hollywood. I wasn't even trying to be a comic. I just wanted to get my chops as an actor.
Yeah.
But after being stereotyped for many years, playing the same character over and over, the terrorist, the cab driver, the sleazy Muslim
7-Eleven guy, you
Right.
name it, I do it. You know, I understand. It's
And I didn't want to change my name. And my agent I said, I don't want to do these parts anymore. And the phone stopped ringing. And I ran out of money. I went back to waiting tables. It was through waiting tables is where I really found the art of stand-up comedy, because I was making a lot of money in tips. And then I figured, you know what, let's just move the food out of the way and go right to the consumer. And that's what waiters really are. We're like comics who give you food. And then I started my own shows. I had a really successful show at a place called Dublin's on the Sunset Strip back then.
I've been there and I've seen it, and it was just not successful. It was really successful. And I remember like people would pull up in limousines, Ferraris, and I mean, you had like unbelievable celebrities would show up to that show.
Yeah, I mean, you know, well, going back to Vince Vaughn, you know, he would come every week, every Tuesday night. He'd come and he'd just sit in the back and watch comics. That's how the Wild West Comedy Show was.
And tell us about the Wild West Comedy. I mean, I know that tour very well.
So Vince would
booked
come
a lot
in.
of people that I like, so that's the reason I like it.
Yeah, Vince would come in, watch the show. At one point, he was about to wrap the film, The Breakup with Jennifer Aniston in Chicago.
Yep.
And he said, "Hey, can you bring, you know, a couple guys to come out here and do a charity show for the troops?" And we did, and it was really successful. I brought out Sebastian Maniscalco, Brett Ernst, and John Caparello.
Love all those guys I know well. Great. If you guys don't know those guys, look them up. They're good.
So Vince really kind of entrusted me with my taste in comedians, because we have the same taste in comedy. So one night we were sitting at Gibson's Steakhouse after the show. And
Gibson's in Chicago. I know the place very well. It's one of my top 5 steakhouses in the country, but go on.
No, it's great. And we were all sitting there, and Vince looked at everybody and he said, "Hey," he had just bought a tour bus.
Of course he did. Yeah.
Really nice one too. And he was about to wrap this movie and he said, "Hey, I have 30 days off. Do you guys want to go on tour around America?" And we were like, "When?" He's like, "You know, in 10 days. And we all looked at each other and we're like, "We don't have shit to do. Yeah, let's do it." So 10 days.
Was there an agent involved? How did you book? A million questions on the 10-day notice go on tour thing, but I guess it all worked out. And you guys, that tour is very successful. And I even said, like, why the hell is Vince Vaughn hosting a comedy show? You know, and I saw it in Vegas. I saw you guys in Vegas together.
Oh, that's right.
That was a fun show. I was backstage. It was a great show. And the after party was better. And, and that was fun. Ahmed, I remember it very well, and very successful. I mean, you're known producing like these great shows, but you had a little problem in Naples, Florida, when you're performing at a comedy club. And I do like this story because I love when there's chaos and I love when things happen. So tell the audience what happened in Naples, Florida a couple years ago.
Yeah, it was Mother's Day, actually, May 12th, I believe, 2019. I was
Good
at Off the
memory.
Hook.
I'm impressed.
Yeah, Off the Hook Comedy. How can I mean, I can't forget that date. Off the Hook Comedy Club, Naples, Florida. Been there many times. Um, you know, if you know Naples, it's a very like
Conservative small town in
conservative
in the middle
Republican,
of the
like
redneck of Florida. I mean,
Trump
it's not too far from
supporting.
Tampa. Yeah, I know exactly where it is.
So I do a joke that I've done all over the world, and it always gets a laugh. Sometimes awkward laughs, but I say, hey, any Middle Eastern people in the audience, and a few people clap. I say, oh, that's great. There's a small group of us, but hey, it only takes one of us. And then that gets an awkward laugh. And I say, to tell a joke, it only takes one of us to tell a joke. But seriously, lock the doors, you know. And then everybody kind of like, you know, it's like one of those laughters, right? So so the next day I come to the show and I'm back in the back of the room about to, you know, they're about to start the show and I'm looking at my notes. And the manager walks up and says, hey, there's two cops outside that want to talk to you. And I said, for what? He said, I guess you told a joke last night that made somebody fear for their lives. And I was like, what? And I went outside and it was a black cop and a Mexican cop, which I thought was interesting. They sent two ethnic cops down for this dispatch. And they were like, I said, is everything okay, officers? They're like, are you Ahmed Ahmed? I said, yeah. I said, you're the comedian that performed here last night? I said, yeah. They said, we got a call about a joke you told that, you know, may have been inappropriate. I said, what's the joke? And they said, well, the 911 caller said that you said you were going to start your own little terrorist organization.
So somebody, let me just tell the audience what somebody did. Somebody,
Yeah.
you said a joke on stage, which my belief, when a comedian's on stage, it's like it's their own little shelter. They can do anything they want except yell fire. Um, so I mean, again, you're a comedian. They know you're a comedian. So some person took you literally and thought that you really wanted to start a terrorist organization. So they called 911. Keep going.
Yeah, so he calls 911. First of all, he called 911 the next day. So he went to the show Saturday night. He slept on the emergency, Ross.
So
Like
he, so
he probably got up, he probably got up in the morning and like thought about it, like yelled at his wife, kicked his dog, you know, or whatever.
probably, yeah, the alcohol wore off, and he said, "I think the guy said something about starting a terrorist organization.
Right.
Honey, I'm gonna call 911. I'm gonna be a
No.
hero."
So have you listened to the call? It's online.
I heard it. Yeah, I
Yeah.
did my research, and
It's
I mean,
terribly funny.
I
So
mean,
anyway, so
yeah,
they're
keep going.
asking me these questions, and I said, I didn't say that. I said it only takes one of us. I could send you a recording. I record all my sets. The guy took it out of context, whatever. They're like, well, we just had to come check you out. Don't change any of your material. Keep doing what you're doing. And I said, can I record you saying this? And I did. Then I posted it on Twitter that night. It went viral the next day. And then it made global news. It was on BBC, CNN,
It was
TMZ,
all over. I mean, I
all
saw
over.
it. I saw it like under, CNN has like the headlines on the
The
bottom.
ticker.
I said like comic Ahmed Ahmed. I'm like, what the hell this guy do? And when I heard the story, I was just I mean, I remember it, and it's like I just started laughing. And I know your buddy called you and said you're blowing up. I mean, and you thought
Well,
maybe because like somebody really liked one of your movies, or somebody saw your appearance or something, and then knew with that they were blowing up because there's controversy on you, and somebody called 911.
well, I couldn't have like paid for that kind of press. It was literally, that would have cost me $100,000 to hire a publicist to get that kind of press. And I thought it was, and a lot of my friends were like, man, aren't you pissed off at the 911 guy? I said, no, I want to take him on the road with me.
Yeah. I mean, how much did your social media go up tremendously? I mean, you must have got
It did. I
a
mean,
lot of friends. I mean, how many interviews did you do afterwards, like when this whole thing was going on?
man, no joke, Ross. I was in Miami when it happened, and I was in my hotel room probably, well, I did about 2 weeks of back-to-back press.
Two
Uh,
weeks.
like every day I was getting a call from the Miami Herald, the Washington Post, the New York Times, CNN, BBC. Like it was crazy. I literally was like my own publicist for 2 weeks.
So did you get like more gig offers? I mean, people were interested in booking you? Were you
Oddly enough, I didn't. And it was funny too, because I was trying to use this little piece of press to like, expand my, just being recognized a little bit more. And it didn't, I did a follow-up show at the club that it happened at, because the owner called me and he said, "Hey man, my phone, no pun intended, but my phone's ringing off the hook. Can you come back and do another show?" I said, "Yeah." And then all the local press came and all that. So the funny thing is the guy gave himself up in the call. He says, "I was there with my wife. We get free tickets. We go all the time." So the owner and I sat there and did like a little cross check of like the database of who was there that night, what there was, free tickets, and we found out who the guy was. So I friended him on Facebook.
Oh, you did? Did he accept it?
He accepted it, and then he sent me a message saying, "How do we know each other?" I'm like, "You know how the fuck we know each other."
You said that? Did he
No,
admit that he was
I
the guy?
didn't.
Did he ever admit that he was the guy, the 911 guy?
I didn't reply to his message because I want to leave him dangling.
That's the Ross the Boss move too. That's really
Leave him
smart.
dangling.
I like the dangling.
But he did say, "Hey, I heard what happened at the comedy club. It sounds like the guy really helped you out instead of bringing you down." I'm like, "Now you're taking credit."
Yeah, I mean, again, it just amazes me sometimes people in the audience don't understand what that means to be a comedian and and how they should behave in the audience with the heckling and everything else. And even with the cancel culture now, Ahmed, I mean, do you feel like you got to watch what you say now on stage because somebody can record you saying something and then they edit it so you look like a fascist or racist, whatever they want to make you look like they can do?
Yeah.
I mean, do you have to like watch what you say now compared to what 10 years ago when you didn't really care what you said?
It's funny you asked that because I just did 4 shows, hour-long sets in San Diego last weekend. Did 4 shows back to back. And I did a lot of crowd work, which I love to do. I pride myself on crowd work. It's a joy.
You're good at it. Yep.
If you can get away with it, I say go for it. I've gotten pretty good at it. And I was saying some pretty like racy stuff to the audience, and they didn't seem to flinch. So I think it's kind of like how you say something. You know this.
It's how you present yourself, and
yeah,
exactly. But I just feel like with the cell phone has destroyed comedy in many facets.
Certain trigger words, like I stay away from certain, topic. Like I don't talk about like handicap. I don't get into like touchy topics like cancer or rape or any of that stuff.
No.
I don't like, there's no need to talk about that. There's enough shit out there in the world to
I agree.
touch on. Why even go there?
I agree. It's just I feel bad for comedians now because they really have to watch themselves what they have to say. And Chris Rock talks about it. Dave Chappelle talks about it. I mean, it's just a common thing that we talk about because it's not what comics sign up for when they become a stand-up comic.
Eddie Murphy talked about it when he did his Seinfeld Comedians in Cars Drinking
Coffee. He did.
And he said, when I can't do the material I was doing 25 years ago from Delirious or
no, there's no way like Raw would work right. There's no way.
No way.
There's no way. So you actually were in a movie that I really enjoyed called Iron Man. You played a terrorist. You just told me about it, but tell the audience tell the audience how you got the role. Tell us what it was like working on the set, because Iron Man's one of the big iconic movies that I still kind of like to watch.
Yeah, first of all, it was really well done. Peter Billingsley, who he was, if you're listening, he was Ralphie in A Christmas Story. He was a big child actor, and he had transitioned into producing and directing and whatnot, and ran Vince Vaughn's production company for many years and directed and did stuff with him. When Jon Favreau got the gig to direct Iron Man, he asked Peter Billingsley to come on as an executive producer.
Wow.
Peter said, came to me and said, "Hey, Favreau and I are doing Iron Man. I know you don't want to play these terrorist parts anymore, but I got 6 weeks of work on this movie, and all your scenes are with Robert Downey Jr. And you'll get your health insurance, and it'll be this and that, and cover your face up, blah blah blah. What do you think?" And I said, "Yo, man, you had me at Iron Man. Let's go, baby." or whatever.
Yeah. You were ready to roll. I'm sure your whole philosophy of not playing the terrorist anymore was thrown out the window. And you worked for 6 weeks, and you're still getting residual checks, I'm sure,
Yeah.
on it. Which is
Yeah, I still get residual checks. I got to hang out with Robert Downey Jr., who was cool as ice, man.
nice. One of the nicest guys I've worked with too. I
He's
mean,
such a nice guy. And it was just one of those cool, like it was an action movie. It's $100 million action movie. So we're like walking around shooting fake guns, and we're in these makeshift like caves, and it was fun, man. We were in the desert and just doing all this. Like it's a dream come true if you're an actor and you want to.
I mean, and plus the craft services and
Yeah.
hotels, and somebody always around to help you if you need something. It's unbelievable. So right now you're always producing something, which I like about you. You're producing a show down in Huntington Beach. Why don't you tell the audience about it?
So this Friday is our last show for now.
It is. Okay.
Yeah, we're gonna take off. What happened was I kind of blew through all my like famous A-list comedian friends.
Like to tell the audience who you had performed there in the
We've
past.
had Bill Burr, we've had Tiffany Haddish, Adam Carolla, we've had Jeff Ross, Craig Robinson, Dan Cook, Lunel. The list goes on and on. Fortune Feimster. And then we would book comics that were really, really good, but weren't household names, and they weren't selling tickets. So the owners of the venue were like, hey, let's start back up in April and, do this again next year. So, but I started a smaller show in Huntington Beach on Thursday nights at a place called Cruisers Bar. It's a fun little thing. We did it for the first time last week. And starting October 20th, I'm starting a new show at a place called Jam in the Van. Have you heard of this place?
No, where is it?
It's really cool. It's right near Fox Studios on Motor Avenue in West LA.
Was that the place that has karaoke, correct?
Well, no, they used to just have music, but now they do comedy, and there's a bar and a restaurant. It's a whole multi like sort of complex for comedy. 300 seats outside, 150 seats inside. So I'm starting a new show called Ahmed Ahmed's Comedy Compound, October 20th. And if you go to jaminthevan.com, just check out Ahmed Ahmed's Comedy Compound. And we have Daryl Hammond on the show. Brian Callen is on the show. Rojo Perez is on the show.
I mean, you always a great show. Ahmed, I'm not just saying this. I mean, everything you do is always first class. Anytime you have a chance to see one of Ahmed shows, make sure you see it, because he knows how to produce a show. I mean, he doesn't put on bad comics. He puts on really, really good comics. And if you don't know them, that means they're really, really, really funny, because then he's not booking them because their name. He's booking them because they're really, really funny.
Well, I learned from you guys, man.
I hope so. So before you go, we asked all the comics this. It's a question I always like to hear, because like I told my Norm Macdonald story about his hell gig, and we had Brad Williams on a couple weeks ago, and he told his hell gig. You work a lot, and you must have a great hell gig story. I want you to tell us the story before you leave.
I told it when I auditioned for the Tonight Show.
That's not a hell gig. You didn't get paid. Well, you did get paid.
Hell gig? You mean like getting like heckled or booed or not paid? Or
just you were booked somewhere. The place is not a comedy club. The place, the audience couldn't hear you. It was just a hell gig. It was just, there's no gratification after you were done.
I did a show. I did a college gig for the Muslim Student Association at UCLA.
Okay.
And there was like 300 Muslim kids, like teenagers, just chatting and heckling and clack. They didn't even know what was going on. The MC brought me up, but didn't give me a proper introduction. Just said, "Okay, please welcome Ahmed Ahmed." And nobody knew what I was doing, who I was. So I was struggling with my material for the first probably minute. And then I said something like, I can't remember even what I said, but I said something like, "You kids need to, shut up and listen," or something like that. And then I got booed. And the MC came over and grabbed the microphone from me and said, "You need to leave." and I was like, and the audience, and I was just like, ugh. And I didn't get paid. And
you didn't get paid either. At least you didn't drive that far. I mean, but they should pay. I mean, I've heard like bad gigs, and the comic stories get paid at the end, but it's just for them not to pay that's pretty bad, especially from the Muslim community.
Right. Your own people turning on you.
Horrible. It's horrible. So, Ahmed Ahmed, it's been great having you on. I love catching up with you. Again, if you haven't seen any of his documentaries, make sure you watch. They're all excellent, all top notch. And if you can see Ahmed Ahmed live, it's a good time, a good time. And I promise you, money back guaranteed. You'll laugh a lot. But thanks for coming on.
Hey, brother. Thank you. That was a lot of fun. I appreciate it.
I'm Ross the Boss, and thanks for watching.